The next person is Arjun, who's using logic systems to understand lived human experiences, and he builds algorithms to express them in his artwork.
Hello. Yes. Hey, thank you all for being here. My name is Arjun. I'm a first year grad student at a program called ITP at NYU. I think the best description that I ever read of that program was that it's an engineering school for artists and it's an art school for engineers. Um, and I'm going to be talking about a body of work that I've made from 2021 till about 2024. How I got there, and the central line of inquiry that sort of threads these multiple projects together. And I think it's what I'm interested in even today. So let's begin. It all started from a point of frustration. I was I was an undergraduate student at a small institute of design in India, and I was studying design at a time where in India, engineering and design were considered very separate from each other. So the fact that I'm at a math and programming conference is sort of absurd for India right now. So much so that in a project, a professor of mine actually told me that it's not my job to engineer. My job is only to think and propose what an ideal interaction should be. And that sort of irritated me a little bit because at the same time in the library there were books by these Western authors that were talking about how they were embracing code as a new creative medium. So this is a famous book by a typography professor at MICA. And there was also a book that was literally called Code as Creative Medium. And somehow my professors weren't allowing me to sort of experiment with code as a design student. The last straw for me was I built this small little project called Thinker. It was this way for people who mind map to be able to mind map without touching a computer and to use gestures and sort of like move notes together and cluster them and whatnot. But the thing that irritated me was I could never build this. Like this is a crappy prototype on a video editing software because I can never make a hand tracking sort of tool. And I studied before AI, so I could really not do it, right? So this was it for me, and this is when I started programming, and I started doing these little experiments with code as sort of a creative medium. It all took off when I did my undergrad capstone at this organization called Science Gallery. There are about 7 of them in the world, and I worked with the only one in Asia, which was in India at that time. And we were working for an exhibit that they wanted to communicate everything about the human mind to young adults. That was the exhibition. It was called Psyche. And so what I did was I spoke to a bunch of young adults and I asked them, well, if science could answer a question for you, what would it be? And they gave me a bunch of things, and then I grouped them, and it turns out that they were all very interested in, well, what is the end goal? Like, why do we do what we do, and why are we here, and all of these existential questions. So I said, okay, I'm going to try and answer that for you. And the way I did that was I stumbled across places, but I eventually arrived at this, which was a theory of human motivation by A.H. Maslow in about 1948. It was at the time considered the pioneering theory of human motivation. And it was sort of absurd, but still amazing to me that a human being decided that they can answer why every single human being does what they do in this theory. And I think the definitiveness of this premise was sort of fascinating to me. So if you're not familiar with this, the way it works is it's a hierarchy. So you have lower needs at the bottom, and then you work your way to the top. And the idea is that, for example, if this is the lowest need, physiological needs, which is you need energy to sustain, if you fulfill the requirements of this need, you move on to the next. So then now you're bothered about safety. And slowly you move on to more abstract needs like belongingness and love. How do you even define that? But sure. Then you have esteem, which is respect in society. And finally, you sort of self-actualize. When I read this, I think it was interesting because it seemed like a game. all of human life seem like a game. There's this first level, which is easy: get food, survive. The second one is be safe. The third one is more abstract, but find a companion. The fourth one is sort of rise up in society, which is very abstract, like how do you even measure that? And finally, self-actualization by A.H. Maslow's definition was you realize your creative potential. And that's sort of the win, right? Like that's the grand win. And I thought, well, okay, maybe that's the end of existence. And you will never be able to reach self-actualization. So that's why there's a question mark there. So what I did was I built this small little game. And it was a web game programmed in JavaScript where you sort of wake up. It was called In Between Life and Death. And you wake up as this particle who is suddenly given life. And now you're supposed to like maintain the requirements of each need, save yourself from enemies, find a partner, sort of grow, have friends. And in the end, you sort of randomly die because you never get to self-actualize. And that was, that was how I interpreted it. But I think this was the starting point for me because this was, I took an abstract concept and I interpreted it because the way Maslow has written it, it's so difficult to understand what he actually meant concretely. So I had to add my own interpretation to it. Like, for example, belongingness and love, again, like how do you define what belongingness and love is? And then I had to express it concretely. So I had to move from this very abstract thing to this very concrete thing because I had to program it. So for example, like physiological needs, if you look at this is pseudocode, but if there is food, if someone eats it, that food does not exist and it's used by the particle as energy, right? That's simple. But if you look at something like belongingness and love, it was very complicated to program. So this actually is my pseudocode algorithm for consent. So I programmed consent into the game where if you move too quickly towards another particle, they sort of get repelled. Right? Yeah, and so this premise to me became really interesting artistically, and I started to explore this. So I'm going to take you through a bunch of different explorations. The first one is called living messages, and this was motivated by this idea that think about all the text-based communication that you do. Poetry, personal messages, stories, right? They're expressive, they're personal, they're emotional. But somehow you always express them in these nondescript typefaces that a tech company has decided for you, right? And yeah, like this is an example. It's a piece, it's a poem, but like I can't express it in a different typeface, or I can't express it in a way that the display of it also adds to the meaning. And at the same time, I was sort of inspired by media theory, where Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message, and by that he meant that inherently the way that you choose to display your message also has power over the narrative. And I wanted to explore that. So I started to do a bunch of these experiments where I took personal messages and I expressed them using algorithms. And they became living because they're not videos or they're not text. So for example, here, this was my take on relationships at that time. So if you see, all the characters of the text reads give plus take. So all the characters of give plus take are giving and taking things from each other. This one, which says, the text reads, we go around in circles. And every single element that makes up the text is going around in circles forever. More complex ones like sometimes a wave hits, and this is from a John Mayer song which says, it's just a wave and I know. And so the wave is sort of hitting this text and it's still flowing by. As I made more of these, the meaning started to get embedded into the visual form. So for example, here it says, what I wish to say is lost in your pixels. And at some point in certain orientations, what I'm saying is actually lost in these pixels. And visually, this was really interesting. A more evident example of this is this, where the text reads, the distance between us. And as the distance between the particles sort of increases, the communication is lost. which is interesting. Like my text does not read anything about communication or legibility. But this is what I felt, that when the distance between us increases, like I can't communicate with you. It was trying to express it to someone. Or this, for example, where the text reads "Stop the bleeding heart," and at some point it becomes illegible because it's bled out so much. Right, and visually this is very interesting. So this is at the start of this program, and this is it towards the end. And as you can see, like the text sort of stops becoming legible at some point. Then another interesting thing started to happen as I started to make this. My memories got embedded in these artifacts. So this is my favorite one. This one, the text reads "Dancing in the Dark," and it was capturing this one moment where I was dancing in the dark with someone, and the only thing I remember is light glimmering on top of this water body, and that's exactly what this message sort of captures. And it's there forever. Like this memory is now tied with this artifact forever, and that's the only thing I remember. So then, as I was exploring these, obviously the next one was math. Well, math is beautiful and abstract, but you can't see it. So what can I do with that? And I was introduced to this Iranian mathematician, Hamid Naderi Yagane, who makes these really complicated drawings with mathematical equations. I cannot understand any of it, but they're really pretty and really complicated. And he posts them really nonchalantly, like he says, "I drew this hedgehog with mathematics equations." Right, and that's pretty insane. So I started with my own inquiry, and again, I don't come from a math science background. I was not allowed to study it in school at a certain point. So I'm trying to rediscover my relationship with math and science and stuff. So I started with simple things like rotation and basic trigonometry. So this is the first piece. And here, if you notice, the math is very much a part of the artwork. It's not just the artifact that it creates, it's also the program that was used to create it. So on the left, you see the program. Wait, on your, left. And on the right, you see its outcome. So this is the other one where I'm just drawing ellipses. And I'm rotating them by a certain number every single frame. These are squares, again rotated, but this is still. And if you start to do it enough number of times and you just put cos and sine in a bunch of places, something interesting starts to emerge. I believe these are lines. I seem to have forgotten. These ones are squares, but the form that they produce is somehow circular or rounded, which is very interesting to me. But this wasn't good enough. This wasn't, I wasn't really understanding the math. I was just putting sine and cos in a bunch of places, or like using pi in this case. And multiplying numbers with each other. So I started with a simpler inquiry. This one was called Drawings on a Cartesian Plane. And the idea was simple. It was, how far can I take the number line? The number line is this elementary concept that you're introduced to. I'm sure all of you know, but still, it's this one-dimensional line where you can plot a single number. If you extend it to 2 dimensions, it becomes the Cartesian plane, the Cartesian coordinate system, where a single point is represented by a set of 2 numbers, which is its x coordinate and its y coordinate. And the idea was, how much complexity can I produce with just this simple system? So I started to produce drawings. Same logic as before, the program that is used to make the drawing is very much a part of the drawing itself. So on the right this time, on my left, you see the program, and then on this side, you see the outcome. So this one is pretty interesting for me. It's just drawing 2 pairs of lines from one position to the other, but with a certain set of rules, and very simple rules. the position is just getting decremented or incremented. Same as output 3. So this is output 3, but this is the same as the other one. The only difference is that here points start from a specific, all the points sort of converge to one point, which is this 200 by 200 point. So same as this, just a small variation, and it sort of looks like a pencil or a missile. This was interesting. This is output 5. This is 6, which is very interesting. So now I got into arcs because I realized like everything was too straight. So these are some arcs. And again, simple rules just being rotated and the arc's angle is changing incrementally. And here, something interesting started to happen where I can see like some sort of three-dimensionality to this drawing. So interesting. It's just lines that are moving, that are being placed incrementally again. From here, at the same time, I was pursuing this other inquiry, which was digital painters. So this line of inquiry is sort of, I really love this line of inquiry. This was, I saw Jackson Pollock paint for the first time. I mean, I didn't see him because he's not alive, but I saw a video of him painting. And it was really interesting to me that there were these series of arbitrary decisions that he made. So if you don't know Jackson Pollock, he took a bunch of like dried painting instruments or sticks and dipped them in a special kind of paint and splashed them over big canvases to produce these works. And what seems like arbitrary decisions to me, when you make a person sort of stand in front of this piece, or you make them look at it over the internet. I had never seen a Pollock painting before last year, so this was all over the internet for me. They say that it's intentional and it seems emotionally intense, which is so interesting. It's like, for me, these decisions are arbitrary, but for someone else, they're emotionally intense. And so I wanted to sort of algorithmize abstract expressionist painting processes. So I started with simple algorithms where like something is being replicated over time. So if you see this one, this is just a section of a square sort of gets drawn, and then another section gets drawn, and another section gets drawn, but they keep overlapping on top of each other. And it produces something interesting texturally. This is Pollock, obviously. So this is a video which is playing very slowly, but if you notice some strands, they're sort of moving into space. This is a still from the same series. These are some details. And this is what the generation looks like over time. And all of these are from this rule-based system that I define, which is like you place a drawing object on a canvas and then you stretch it over space. You can also rotate it. There's speed, there's rotation, there's an ending point, blah, 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 blah. So I just saw videos of people painting and from my own experience and sort of tried to algorithmize it. This one is interesting because it's the same algorithm, just a bunch of parameters changed, and it produces this very interesting sort of action stroke texture. At some point for me, I couldn't understand if this was digital, but these are interesting. This is called, I titled it graphic, but it sort of resembles some sort of Bauhaus forms. And it's just this program again, and then you keep changing these parameters and things come wildly different. Now the same algorithm, but you change a few things and it produces this. This is hashing, sort of, I thought it looked like pencil hashes, but a bunch of them. So if you see it generate over time here, right, like they fill up space. These are some details. all this is just a bunch of lines, but many, many lines, like about 2,500 lines or something, laid on top of each other. Same program, change a few things, something new comes out. Some texture. Then I started to make a new algorithm, and this one is, I call it light plus sand because that's what it looked like. But it's this very slow evolving algorithm that sort of generates this over a long period of time, and generates these really interesting textures, I think, visually. This one's going to be bad just because of the projector, but if you add color, it becomes really interesting. Here's some details. Some more from the same thing, but this time sort of playing with them moving and laid on top of each other with different transparency things. This one I particularly like because there's this one side that is dark and one side that is light, and so it's like light versus darkness that's happening here. And this is the final line of inquiry. This was existence. This was cut short by my move to New York. But this was basically, can I express what it feels like to exist in this world and produce a series of algorithmic drawings? So here, the logic system that is used to make the drawing is very important. So it's sort of a long logic system, but it was me thinking about what it feels like to exist in this planet, on this planet. And there are all of these like unique cells. The world is made up of cells. They're nothing more than just energy. They have a core and they have certain personalities. Some cells generate more energy and take up more space. And so they form these groups and communities, so they cluster together, while some of them remain by themselves. And that's just this first drawing, which is called coexistence. So it's these little circles, but none of them overlap because you're never really interacting with the core of a person. You're sort of on the periphery. These are some details. Right, so there are these two cells with different personalities, but they never really interact with each other. They form these communities, but they can't really experience what it feels like to take up space on a planet like another individual. This one was energy exchanges. Again, same cells, but they sort of communicate through energy and they spread energy. So this is one drawing, zoomed in. So each cell sort of radiates energy, and different sizes of cells radiate different numbers of energy or quantities of energy, and people take and give energy. That's just what existence feels like, one interpretation. Yeah, and finally, like what am I doing now? I think I've sort of articulated this practice a little bit more during my first year. I sort of explored a lot. For me, it's like I'm very interested in the emergence that is produced by complex systems, where the rule sets are very simple. But for me, the rule sets cannot be arbitrary. So if you're used to something like cellular automata or something, the rules are very arbitrary. It's like if one cell is here and their neighbors are alive, this one is dead, blah blah blah. For me, they must come out from lived experiences. So like living messages came out of that. Digital painters was me trying to take painting and then trying to algorithmize it. So they must pursue like this reification of a lived human experience. And finally, because I do that, the idea is that I get closer to some version of objective truth for myself, because I'm understanding this abstract thing in a very concrete manner. Yeah, and that's sort of my work. These slides are available in case any of you like want to see an image in high quality or something. Thank you for scanning. That means a lot. Yeah, that's my work. Thank you.
Thanks, Arjun. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, wait, you have a...
One kind of small question. How did you go about getting such like textured, in some of the painting ones where it really looks like a a paintbrush is dragged or like you're painting on a textured material or something.
Yeah.
Just curious about that.
Let's see. Yeah, so for all these painting algorithms, it was again me just looking at how do people actually paint in real life, and then duplicating those steps in a computer algorithm. So the algorithm is not separate from how you paint in real life. So there is a brush, there is a brush object, and the brush object has like the brush has width, the brush has bristles. Bristles are separated from each other. Blah 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 blah. So I try to make these parameters that are as replicable in real life as they are on their digital counterpart. I'm nowhere close. I think there's so many parameters that I could have made. And that's how these textures sort of evolve, because there's so many parameters that are interacting with each other. And they're mirroring real world things. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the great talk. I really enjoyed it. There were a few times you mentioned, I might be using the wrong words, but kind of difficulty with interpreting code as a medium or as artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you could say anything about that, if you currently still feel that way, or if you feel like there's opportunities for us as society to bridge gaps or be more supportive of code as a medium.
Yeah, I think I've also been fighting this dilemma. When I show my work to people, and I think even when we look at the work of other people, it's not really about how it was made, it's about what is made, and can we just move on with that? And that's why I was trying these little things where I was trying to imbibe that the algorithm that was created and put it as part of the work, so you're forced to interact with it. But I don't think people care. The only people who care are in this room, probably. So, so that is one side where I don't think people care. For me, it's really important, like code as a creative medium. For me, it's really important. Like I think just the fact that I go from this abstract thing to this concrete thing, code really helps me with that, and that's how I understand the world. So for me, the work is inseparable from code as a creative medium. But I don't think people who look at the work really care. Yeah. Thank you for these questions. These are amazing.
Thank you for your presentation. Found it super interesting, especially, I mean, you're talking a little bit about medium and so on, and I think like abstract expressionism is so interesting because within painting, it's sort of similarly trying to get at the substance itself or these kind of non-human limits in order to represent things like intuition and emotion and things which can't be sort of directly expressed. I'm curious, in kind of approaching these projects, you know, perhaps with some idea of a philosophy of, say, like human needs or relationships which you are seeking to see expressed. Do you find maybe the ideas that you start with feel modified within the process of trying to express them? Have you noticed, you know, changes or new avenues in your own kind of sense of yourself or your world? And do you think that in sort of future researches, there's a way to present sort of, you know, differing or even conflicting interpretations within like a single program or something like that?
Yeah, very packed question. Thank you. Yeah, so the first bit is does the work sort of evolve and does my understanding evolve? So sometimes I start when I am trying to develop this rule set, I'm trying to be as spot on as possible. But when I program, because of my inability, sometimes I can't express that that level of concreteness. And so initially I was embracing that, and I think it was easier to create work when I was a poor programmer because I was embracing what the computer was telling me. It was like, I need you to do this, but then the computer reverts back with, hey, well, this. And then I'm like, okay, this looks interesting. Let's pass it off. But now, because I'm a better programmer, it's like I have this thing in my head and I need it to be exactly that. And I think that's not working for me. So I want to break away from that. And in terms of how it affects my life, I don't know. I think that's how I process life, and I'm trying to live by these things. I often try to do these like these logical rules or whatever. Like for example, I wrote this little note about um, aphorisms for adulthood, and the idea was I have these 4 principles, and I'm going to live by these 4 principles always. And it doesn't work. Like I'm also learning. I'm young. But yeah, the attempt is sort of that. Yeah, and I think I'm getting closer, and I think I'm getting better. Yeah. Sorry, I don't think that fully answered your question, but you can see that I'm jumbled up.
Thank you for the talk. Have you heard of a quine? Are you familiar with this concept?
Quine?
Yeah, it's esoteric. It's a term for a program, a computer program that prints itself.
Ah, yes.
It prints its own source code. So you were saying before you were curious about putting the algorithms used to make art more on display as the art.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would be interesting to make an artistic tool that creates itself, essentially.
Yes, that is very interesting, and I have looked into quines because there's this piece by Ben Fry that prints out the source code and it shows you where all the loops were, and I think that's not what I'm trying to do. I don't think people want to see the syntax and whatever. I think it's about the logic system is important for me. So even if you looked at drawings on a Cartesian plane, I didn't write the entire program. I just wrote the mathematical stuff like, okay, there was a line that is being drawn from a point to a point and it's being incremented over time. I don't think the source code matters. I think the logic system definitely matters. And so, yeah, like a program that would print out the logic system and make it a part of the outcome would be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and you could choose where to highlight maybe as part
Yes,
of that.
that's true. Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Hey.
Sorry, I've got another piece of trivia. Forgive me. Have you seen the folks who are putting on Solowitz drawings? I think they're with MoMA, maybe?
Yeah.
You're familiar? Yeah. So for those unfamiliar, he's I think, forgive me, I don't have an art background, but a mid-century artist who has these designs that are sort of like, okay, yeah, thank you. Pull up. So like there are instructions for making art. So there'll be like draw 4 boxes with like 4 diagonal lines each, all parallel or something like that. And so it's sort of up to the person who is like doing the art to, they're sort of procedural, they're sort of like an algorithm, but then the person actually doing it has the control over how that, and that's sort of similar to Pollock, right? Where like the description of like throwing the paint is very deterministic, but then where it lands is non-deterministic. And I'm wondering like, for the stuff you're making, are those all like you hit play on the program and it draws the same thing every time? Are you like working with randomness? Is it like in terms of expressing these ineffable concepts of life through like very effable things such as programming languages and math? Like I'm wondering how non-determinism or like unexpectedness plays in for you.
100%. I think, again, like I said, for me, emergence is important. So it has to be emergent in nature. And because it is emergent in a complex system, it cannot be predictable. It cannot be predictable. I don't think the work has to be deterministic. So I try to move away from that. There is the system and you'll get a certain kind of output, but definitely you won't get the same output twice. I still don't know how to present this work or how to archive it and how it should be presented in the world. Like right now there are video loops. I could put up the sketches, but I still don't think that's right. I'm still finding the right way to present this work. But they have to be non-deterministic. I don't think they have to be deterministic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there rules that you pursued or considered that you had trouble trying to represent in some form of digital form that you're still exploring?
So many, right? So when I started with all this work, I ambitiously said, I'm going to model all of human life. Yeah, and slowly as I started to do it, I realized it was impossible. And somehow it feels like I'm pursuing this impossible task of trying to concretize the world around me and trying to understand it via algorithms. I don't think I will be able to understand a lot of it. But I think I enjoy the pursuit. So I aspire to make all of these algorithms for everything, like connections, friendship, fights, whatever, and try to express them. But often I fail, and I even fail conceiving of the algorithm because there's so many parameters and so many variables, and it's not right. So I try to set these restrictions, like painting is one. Maybe not of life, not of all of human life, but maybe some parts of life. I could try and replicate. But that's the pursuit. But I fail. Yeah. Yeah. Also, for your thing, if you've looked at Yoko Ono's instructional work, they're amazing. Yeah. Okay. Is that it? Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you.